Hello, I'm Matthew Gavidia. Today in the MGH Life Sciences and Medical World News, the Center for Biosimilars is pleased to welcome Dr. Wayne Winegarden, a senior fellow in business and economics at Pacific Research Institute, or PRI, as well as director of PRI Center for Medical Economics and Innovation. Can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work?
Oh, absolutely. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wayne Winegarden. As Matthew just said, a senior fellow and director for Center for Medical Economics and Innovation at Pacific Research Institute. Part of what we try to pursue at PRI with respect to our healthcare research is discuss how free market reforms can improve both the quality of care as well as reduce the cost of care. So basically kind of get that productivity that we see in other parts of the economy, get that working in the healthcare sector. And at the center, one of the things we focus on particularly is pharmaceutical products, medical devices. Right now, there's a lot of attention and there's specific issues like biosimilars that are unique to the pharmaceutical market. And that's what we try to emphasize when we're doing our research at the center.
To start us off, specialty drug prices continue to climb, but has there been a slowdown in the rate of that climb, and what might be causing this?
Yes, there's been especially in the spend, and a lot of that is we're beginning to see biosimilar competition stand up. For a while, we were having a very difficult time getting that foothold in the market. We're still not anywhere close to where we could be or should be, but we are beginning to see the biosimilar market stand up, and that's beginning to have an impact. And over time, hopefully, we'll begin to see more of that.
What are your thoughts on the constant price increases of drugs like Lantus?
What we're seeing in drugs like Lantus or across the market is when you don't have effective competition, you're seeing prices rise. But you need to be careful when we talk about prices rising because the market is so complex. Often when we're looking at prices, what we're looking at is the wholesale acquisition cost, or that gross price, which isn't the price systemically. It is the price that the patient's costs are based on, and that's part of the issue. We have the drug affordability problem that we do, but it's not actually the systemic price. So there's really two things that we need to look at. One, why is that price going up? Because there are, especially in the specialty drugs, prices are rising too quickly. But two, we need to be very careful when we talk about prices that we're talking about the relevant market price. And often when we talk about drugs, that's not what we're talking about.
What's your take on the strength of the biosimilar market in the United States? Are there examples of success, and are we poised for greater uptake?
Yes and yes. The greatest example of success is Arshio, right, which has a majority of the market. But even in the infliximab market, where you've seen the biosimilar competitors drive down the cost of the originator product, from a consumer perspective, is a success. Obviously, it raises issues in terms of sustainability of competition, which we need to be very careful for, and we need policies that support long-term durable competition, which is a different issue altogether. But we are definitely seeing some successes, and we certainly are poised for more. I think the education about biosimilars, that message is getting out there. People are recognizing it, and so we also have some very important biosimilars in the pipeline that hopefully will be in the market soon, and they can make a very, very big difference in terms of the costs.
How about biosimilar uptake during COVID-19? What do you think we're going to find when the dust settles?
I think COVID-19, obviously the biggest issue in terms of public health and drugs is going to be the vaccine. Right? And so that's a little bit outside the scope in terms of biosimilars. What we need to, especially because of all the stress that COVID has placed on the healthcare system, it actually accentuates the need to get this market up and running, stood up, a much larger share. I mean, if generics are 90% of the market in your small molecules, we need to get close to that share with the biosimilars to help bring down the cost because of all the stresses that COVID has put on, obviously across the economy, but it's targeted the healthcare system. And so anything that could help promote greater affordability and improve people's health and especially adherence, so that obviously when you have greater adherence, we're going to have greater health outcomes. It's all of that is amplified because of the current environment that we're in. So, in that sense, it heightens the need for us to get this market up and running faster.
What are your thoughts on the power of large employers to shift their employees toward biosimilars, such as Disney and Costco have done? And do you see this trend gaining significant momentum?
Yeah, I definitely see it gaining steam. I mean, we've seen that in the numbers as we've been tracking the amount of savings we're getting from biosimilars. In the latest numbers that we've run, we're already up to $1.8 billion. That was from a few hundred million just a couple of years ago. So we're seeing much greater usage, greater market share, and so the savings are going up. Obviously, the potential is 10 times that, if not more. So there's a lot more to be gained, but we are seeing that. And the power within the large employers, absolutely. I mean, if we look at the way the health insurance markets are today, they're driven by the employers. Now, we can have a whole debate about whether that should or shouldn't be the case, but that is the reality today. And so as large employers switch, you really have that double effect of, one, they're moving a large population towards more affordable drugs. That's a beneficial impact. But the symbolism, the news stories that come from it, the awareness that it raises, those secondary impacts drive both other large as well as smaller payers towards embracing biosimilars. So that kind of double impact, getting the excitement up, is very important. And so absolutely, that's a positive trend. That's very meaningful. And hopefully we'll continue to see more of that.
Can you talk about the fail first or step therapy as a means of getting biosimilars into play?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, fail first is actually working in reverse when it comes to the biologics market. Right? If we go to the small molecule market, typically you fail first in generic, then you can get the branded. But basically, you're encouraging use of the lower cost product first, and then move to the more expensive product. We have the exact reverse in biologics, so that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's fail first on the biosimilar and then move to the biologic. But there's also another issue, which is, if you're failing on the originator, the odds of the biosimilar, and vice versa. If you fail on the biosimilar, the efficacy for that individual patient, there's a lot of issues. I try to stay away from medical issues that's outside of economics and kind of where my expertise is, but you need to be also careful from that angle where you're not really giving the biosimilar a chance because the efficacy, if it's not showing, it's not showing. So you have those concerns as well. So absolutely, one of the most important reforms we need to make to accelerate the use of biosimilars is to address that fail first issue.
Are there any potential strategies for getting payers to steer clear of rebate incentives and put lowest cost biosimilars on formulary?
I mean, there's all sorts of strategies that can be done. I mean, one of the things I think is important is to create a separate formulary tier for biosimilars. And you can have certain types of criteria in terms of, price discounts relative to originators, price prior to entry, whatever you want to, have in order to qualify for it. But in order to share the savings, and that's a big part of the solution, is the savings that biosimilars offer, the patient has to benefit from it. The payer has to benefit from it. Across the board, the practitioners have to benefit from it. And if we don't get everybody's incentives aligned to have the preference of using the biosimilar, then there's going to be something along that chain isn't going to work well. So you want a separate formulary tier where the biosimilar has lower copays, lower co-insurance costs for the patient. You can have higher reimbursement rates for the provider, so they have the incentive to use it. The payer should be saving money. That should be an incentive. You can also give them incentives along the star ratings for Medicare to give them a kind of a boost in the Medicare market. I mean, all of these types of kind of shared savings or shared benefit, we need to get that going so that the systemic benefit, which comes from a lower cost kind of product, is going to be shared by everyone, and so everyone has the incentive to save that money. That's an incredibly important reforms. I was going to singular, but it's really plural. That we need, that would encourage greater biosimilar use, and obviously any payer can adopt those changes among themselves, work with their PBM to make those changes and to demand those changes. As the customer, especially the large customers, payers and employers, they need to start demanding more service, greater service out of the PBMs to ensure that they're getting kind of the pricing and the value that they deserve.